lot of people have a pretty dim view of the future for the UK right now. I even see lots of people who are from the UK and they're saying we're done. It's too late. Now I'm looking at it. I don't think it's too late for the UK. I just think that the longer people put things off, the messier it's going to be in trying to deal with it. Like there was a time when you could have dealt with it easily, and the longer you put it off, the more you push it off to a future generation, the worse it's going to get.
But like you say, the influence of Islam in the UK, which has massively increased over the last several years, I think you can sort of talk about the challenge of Islam in three areas, really. I sort of split the challenge of Islam into three parts, David. One of them is the apologetic challenge. Like, we've got to work out how to give answers and explain and preach the gospel and challenge what Muslims believe and all that kind of stuff.
What you just said, as far as there can be people who kind of don't know what to say, and so they don't want to engage because they're worried that Muslims are going to have all these arguments. I've been telling people for years that the vast majority of Muslims that they run into are going to use the same 3 to 5 objections over and over and over again. So if people are just prepared for those, they're going to be fine in like 95% of their conversations. But in addition to that, something that people never seem to get their minds around is it's okay to kind of learn as you go, to ask questions and then to go look it up. And I tell people that it's like if you're talking to a Muslim and he brings up some argument that you've never heard before, all you have to do is say, hey, I'm not familiar with that. That's interesting. Would you mind if I went and looked into this a little bit and then got back to you? There's no shame in that. Like, most Muslims are going to be like, wow, this person's really interested in what I'm saying. And he's going to think that you're going to go back and find all this evidence that agrees with him, when in reality, you're going to look it up and find that he's been kind of
and you've got all the kind of stuff like the Bible's corrupt and all that kind of stuff in there. The other aspect to it is the theological challenge, which is like, do we worship the same God and all that kind of stuff? And what are the differences between what we believe theologically? But this book really is about the cultural challenge, which not many people are talking about, the cultural challenge that we face, particularly in the UK, but it applies to the West in generally, about how Islam's influence has massively increased and how it's affecting the whole of our culture, including politics.
If only people had been warning them for the last 20 years that as the numbers increase, Islam is going to become increasingly more aggressive and demand more and more political power and so on. If only there had been multiple people warning them for all these years.
It's worth stepping back though, David, and just looking at the demographics. According to the last census, it was 3.9 million Muslims, or 6.5% of the population identified as Muslim. And that compares with like 60 years ago, it was 100,000. So it's a massive increase in that time. Pew Research have said we'll get to 17% by 2050.
Oh, that's great. Let's get it to 100, Tim.
You might sort of think, it's only 6.5%. That's a minority. Well, it's not 6.5% across the whole country. In certain boroughs, it's 30% plus.
Yeah, and it's basically, so you have lots of rural areas where if you look at a map, there's like pretty much no Muslims in certain areas. But it's the big cities. They're taking over cities as far as numbers go. And it's really, you look at it and say, okay, 6.5%. Guys, if you have 6.5% and you're bringing in more and they have the highest birth rates, it's just straightforward mathematics. You could sit down there with a calculator and calculate exactly when they will reach certain other milestones as far as numbers are concerned.
10 policy recommendations that actually would make a difference, which I put out in, I think, 2018. And of course, none of them have been enacted, but they're actually not necessarily very difficult, like banning Sharia councils. Why do we have a parallel legal system? Registering marriages, like we talked about. Ban face veils. That's been done in 16 countries around the world, some of them Islamic countries. So it can be done. Why can't it be done here in Britain? It's obviously a security risk as well as bad for the women, all this kind of stuff. But we're too like, oh, no, it's cultural. We shouldn't criticize it. Tighten marriage visa rules, that's about allowing people to continually bring in new wives from abroad. Ensure police enforce the law equally regardless of culture, religion or ethnicity. That's become a big thing now more recently with two-tier care and all that. Stop promoting Islamic finance. Unashamedly identify the nation as a Christian country. Robustly defend free speech so that Islam can be criticized but prosecute incitements of violence. Ban foreign funding of Islam, again, that's been done in a few European countries already. Could be done here. Cut levels of immigration. So that's kind of, some things that the government could do but hasn't done. But I think, as you sort of said in the introduction, David, I think there's still hope, there's still possibility that things could change and things could, somebody could decide to get their act together and actually tackle this and do something about it. But the question is, have we got the courage? Have we got the guts? And will it be too late at a certain point? Or is it already too late? I don't think it is, but it's getting close.
People need to wake up and real quick. Like, it's just a situation where 20 years ago you could have dealt with it pretty easily, and then 10 years ago would have been really difficult to deal with it. Now would be kind of a nightmare to deal with it, but 10 years from now, it's like you could have dealt with it peacefully, and the longer you put off, the more you're sort of guaranteeing like a future bath over this stuff. That's why I would like to deal with it peacefully. But everyone who tries to deal with it peacefully through criticism and through standing up for freedom of speech and so on, we're condemned as evil. And the good people, we're told, are the ones who are basically pushing this off to a future generation to deal with it. And it's like, wait a minute, how are you the good guys when you're basically guaranteeing a future bath over this, and the people who want to deal with things peacefully through criticism and speech are the evil ones? Yeah, these are absolutely insane times. You have people shouting from the rooftops what you want to do. I mean, what they want to do. And when you say, hey, these guys are acknowledging what they want to do. In your neck of the woods, you have people like Ali Dawa posting videos saying that once he gets his way, he's going to apostates. You also follow what's going on in other places? If so, what are your thoughts on Germany?
Not as much, but I think in Germany, they had like the whole mass immigration thing in about 2015 and all that, and then Angela Merkel saying we can do this. And there has been a massive backlash against that more recently. I think they have tightened up their rules and massively cut down immigration, and well done to them. And I think some other countries are also doing this, Sweden, one or two other countries too. So it's encouraging to see that some countries in the West are starting to wake up and are starting to say, no, hang on, we can't just carry on like this. We can't just keep on importing all these people. And I'm encouraged by that, and I want to see more of that.
And it really seems to me like there's just going to be something's going to happen, and people are going to like rally around it and say enough is enough. And then it seems like something's going to happen in one European country, and then other European countries are going to say, oh, thoughts on the monarch's indifference on Islam. So much for being the head of the church. Is there anything the king can or should do?
Yes, there is. In the coronation service, which we had, he is appointed head of the church, and, there's all this stuff about Christianity in there. And the Bible is presented as like the most valuable thing in the world and the lively oracles of God. And the king insisted on having Muslims and people from other faiths participating to some degree in that service, even though it's a Christian service. Now, they weren't actually able to say anything because there are actually quite strict rules in the Church of England. You can't have a multi-faith thing. You can't have prayers to another God. They didn't do that, but he made a point of involving people from other faiths in there and trying to say, oh no, I'm not, I'm multi-faith and all this kind of stuff. He could actually just say, I'm a Christian and this country is a Christian country, and promote Christianity, as Queen Elizabeth effectively did. And every time she's gave a Christmas message, she said something about Christianity in it. So he could be more explicitly Christian, and his role enables him to do that if he wanted to do that. But that's not the way he seems to be going at the moment.
So link to Christian Concerns YouTube channel is in the description box, and a link to the new book on Amazon is also in the description box. So everyone be sure to grab a copy and read it and get your mind around what's going on in the UK, because even if you're not in the UK, seems like something everyone in the entire world needs to stand their ground on. And we need to help. We need to help our friends in the UK as much as we can. And so get the book, check it out, learn what's going on there, and expose Islam.